Okay, welcome to the FSH Society's webinar series, Fundraising Masterclasses. I want to welcome our online audience today. I hope you will get lots of great ideas and inspiration from our conversation today. One housekeeping note, I'm not going to mute the audience so that you can ask questions freely during the presentation. But if you are in a place with background noise, if there's a jackhammer going or a dog barking, or if you're prone to heavy breathing, I would advise you to use the mute because the telephony system tends to amplify all those noises. There is a chat window, so you can ask questions that way if you like, and you can chat amongst each other quietly during the presentation. I am delighted to introduce today's fundraising masters, Beth Johnston and Judy Seslowe. Hi, Beth. Hi, Judy.
Hello there.
So Beth and Judy founded the Festive Evening of Song, which is a benefit concert in the New York City area, and it has grown tremendously over the past several years into our largest fundraising event. Last year the concert grossed over, I believe it was $315,000 and netted around $270,000. But it started out, as all things do, much more modestly. So I think we can learn a lot by having them share their story of how it all began and how it grew and what they've learned along the way. So welcome, and I look forward to hearing your questions, your presentation and audience questions. So let's see, Judy.
Yes?
Let me start with you. How did this whole thing begin?
Well, it all began really a while ago when we had a meeting in the New York area of people affected with FSH, which caterer Bob Kirsch did for us. And a lot of us finally got to meet one another. And I met Beth there, and we formed a team. And Beth, there had been some concert in New York a couple of years before, but the whole thing was dropped, and it was a smaller scale. And Beth wanted to have a family picnic. I thought the concert was a good idea, so we tried both events. And we enlisted our friends and our families. And that made a very big difference for us in drawing an audience. Because my children brought their friends, Beth's friends brought their friends, and we were able to develop a committee from that. And we had a very successful picnic. And Beth did an unbelievable job. That was in my garden. And then we had a concert that year, smaller scale than we're doing now. We settled on the concert for our event because we could raise more money with the concert. And there was less involved than with the picnic and the weather and all of that. And each year we've succeeded in raising more from that concert. And that has really been our goal, to try to involve more people and raise more. And we do have some very committed friends. I have some friends that don't let their friends off the hook and bring a table of people every year. And our committee is varied, but I would say it's really important to be in touch with people in your area with FSH. And I think that's where the biggest commitment comes from, that and close friends and family.
Right. And I think it can be intimidating to think about doing something like this all by yourself, but when you have a partner or collaborator, that can really get things rolling, can't it?
Yeah. And Beth is so organized. She is a tireless worker. And I must say, I did have a lot of friends that had the means financially to really support us. So that combination, wouldn't you say, Beth, made the biggest
Absolutely.
difference?
Yeah. You got to have the worker bees and then the contact bee.
Exactly. And these friends were really committed to us. So I would.
Well, when you mention, I think the friend network is so important, and I think a lot of people are initially, I think, really terrified of even asking their friends, or who's going to really step forward, who is going to be. You must have experienced this. How did you overcome that?
Well, I learned because a couple of years before we got involved, there was this concert in the city. It was a very small-scale thing. Stephen Blyer performed with Hannah Lackert. And I wasn't involved with it at all, but I heard about it the very last minute. My niece was. She says, maybe you'd like to come. I said, of course. I said, give me some invitations. And I sent out about 40 or 50 invitations. And almost every one of these friends sent a donation or came. It was the shock of my life. And I realized that friends do want to help. And
I think that was our biggest learning, Judy, right, was that if you don't ask, you don't know. And our guest list grew year over year because we finally got over the fear of asking people for help and learned that if you don't ask, you don't receive. So our guest list just kept growing and growing from that point.
And, yeah, I was not good at asking. To this day, I'm not good at putting pressure. But I realized that people really want to help. And there are some people that really have the means, and they're looking for a place to help. And if they're a relative or a friend of a friend, we could be there, where they want to give. Mm-hmm. So I say you just have to get over it and realize that people want to do this.
Right. And there are probably connections in your community that people may not think of initially, but turn out to be really important. So, Judy, you had a business for many years in your community, and I think you're a member of a synagogue, and, they may not be, you're like all people who you call up every day, but they are part of your community. You've interacted with them for years, and they, I think many of them also just stepped up to help.
They do. One of our biggest donors is somebody, from the Marks Better. Until we had the first picnic, she had no idea of what I had. I never talked about it. But she heard from a friend about the picnic, and she called me. She said, Judy, I didn't know what you had. I'd like to help you. Now, had we never had that picnic, we never would have received the kind of donation. They're one of our biggest donors.
Mm-hmm. And that's come from that, Bob Kirsch kind of came out of the woodwork and offered his assistance. He has a catering company with his wife, and they have a lot of venues throughout New York, and he came forward and said, if you would like to grow this event, I'm offering you my venues to grow it. And if we wouldn't have done it, if we wouldn't have started, Judy, he would have never come out of the woodwork either and offered his assistance. Yeah.
Exactly. And Bob himself every year brings a couple of tables there. He doesn't let any of his friends off the hook. He's, he has the financial means, but he is very committed, and he makes sure every one of those friends gets there every year. So,
yeah. So that's a really good point, that an event creates a public conversation. It brings it up in a public way in which it didn't exist before, in terms of you're having FSHD or your family member being affected. So that's a really interesting point. So we do have some slides, so I want to make sure we cover them and go through. Let's see, Beth, do you want to address the points on the slide that's up right now about contact?
Sure, yeah. Judy and I can go back and forth. We got together, Judy and I, and just thought, what was the most important things that we've learned over the years? And let's just address them. Let's put the point up and then show how what we do, and then people can, customize it for their own situation. But, of course, the very first thing is you always contact everyone in your area, both friends and family, as well as, whatever the society has on their list for people affected by FSH. Because, again, you never know who might be able to help. So our guest list is, first we have our core committee members. I think, Judy, what do we have on there, maybe 15 people?
We do, yeah.
Yeah, and each of these, we've asked that each of these committee members provide us with a list of their family and friends that they would like to send invitations to. So this core committee of 10 or 15 people, some of which are far more involved than others. Others are just a name on our committee list. But because of them, we have 750 people on our guest list. Over the years, this guest list has grown from 100 to 750 people because of our committee. And so, and we also have, this group that gets together once a month to help plan our event, and that's what we call our core committee. And they're just friends and family, and they just are willing to help.
And I think that we get a better return at our event than most charities do, because it is so personal. It's really based on friends and family. We're not just sending to anyone who doesn't know, have some connection to us.
And if you skip down to that,
big difference.
Right, it does. And if you skip down to the third bullet point where we say you always use full postage and you personalize, we are committed to, on every single invitation that we send, whoever the committee member is, whoever's guest that is, writes a personal note in every single invitation that says, I hope you can come, and they write their name on the outside of the envelope so that it doesn't get thrown in the trash, that they can see, oh, this is coming from Judy. It's not the FSH Society, it's my friend Judy. So the envelope will get opened, and especially it's got to have, it can't have, the boxed postage. We always hand stamp every single envelope and write a note on each one.
Good points, yeah. I have a question from the audience. Terry wanted to ask if we restate the gross and the net from the event. Beth, you probably remember more precisely from last year.
Oh, well, I think from last year, actually, I think June, with the donations that kept following after the event, I think we were closer to $340,000.
Wow.
And I think we netted close to 300 after that. But the first year, I think we were lucky to get $30,000, and then the next year it was a little over 60, and then the next year it went over 100, and then the next year it went to 180, and then 200, and now we're over 300,000. So it starts really small, and if you want it to, it can grow as big as you want it.
Yeah.
Another thing about the event, our event has basically appealed to an older crowd, and a lot has to do with Stephen, Blyer, and the songs. It's not the kind of event that appeals to a very young crowd because they're not involved with that music, unfortunately. But, that's the reality. My children, who have had their friends come every year, have felt, it's more difficult for them, because of the type of event we do is not as appealing to younger people. So that's something to consider too. Mm-hmm. There are other types of concerts that would appeal to a younger crowd.
Right.
But that's why people have said to me again and again, and we've had wonderful concerts, but so many have said, Judy, the concert doesn't make a difference. We're coming for you and Beth. This is more personal than other charities.
Right.
I've heard many times.
But that said, it's a wonderful evening.
It's a great evening.
It's spectacular. It's totally first class. Yeah.
But I'm just saying that to emphasize the fact that the personal, I think, is the most important thing.
Right.
Wouldn't you say so, Beth?
Absolutely. Well, no, the people wouldn't be there if they didn't know somebody, you or me or somebody on the committee. They wouldn't be there.
Right.
So should we go through these bullet points, June?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory, but, you know, we've got a couple PSAs, personal service, what do you call them, public service announcements, that you know, the FSH Society has professionally made, and they're always available to show at your event. And we've, because Judy's brother-in-law was the producer, we've actually had a special presentation where two huge screens are set up in the concert hall, and he's made sure that it's done, you know, really professionally. But it could be sitting on a TV, you know, in somebody's living room, but they're heartwarming. I'm sure everyone has seen them. They pull your heartstrings, and they make people aware of what's going on, and they're always available, and it helps to get the conversation started. But at the beginning of our concerts, we always show the video, or the most current one that we have.
And June has a video from one of the fundraisers out on the coast that we're going to use
Terry's
this year.
Event. Thank you,
Terry's
Terry.
event. And
that's such a wonderful video.
It's a fabulous video. We're going to use that this year.
And she doesn't mind.
Anything that pulls at the heartstrings is very good to use. And I think this video really does, June, you know, the one you just sent to us. So I think that's excellent.
Of course, you always have some society literature on site. Our brochures are nice, and we're getting ready to update all of our brochures, hopefully to be more colorful and more current. So we'll have current literature that everyone can use soon, right, June, if we win this grant?
Yes, that's right. Working on that.
Judy and I decided, I think we started last year or the year before, we actually saw a friend of ours send out a pre-mailing which asked for event sponsors before the invitation actually went out. And so we thought we'd give it a try. So this letter says, if you would like to be a sponsor of our event and have your name included when the invitation goes out, here are some opportunities for that. And they start, you know, at $1,000, and they go all the way up to, I think, $20,000 or $25,000. And believe it or not, that's where the most of our money was raised in the last two events that we had, was in the sponsorship letter. And then their name gets put inside of the invitation, and they get special recognition inside of the journal that we print for the evening. So that's something you might want to consider. Once your event gets going, the sponsor letter is an important way to raise money early on before the event ever happens. Right, Judy? Don't you think?
Well, it is. I mean, there are some members of our committee who are younger who, in a way, didn't want to participate with that letter because they thought we were asking for too much. On the other hand, we had some people who were quite well-to-do, and they said, you must do this because this is the way you really raise the funds. And they were right. So
yeah, they were right.
They were right. I mean, for those that if you set a very high goal and you want these people to be a sponsor, even if it's we have two people that gave $20,000. Had we not, now most people who got this letter probably thought that was a little out of sight, I would think. But we raised $40,000 right there from that letter because those people could afford it and we're friends.
I have a question about that.
Mm-hmm.
Were those sponsor letters just sent again to your friends, or did you have connections at companies, or were those just blind letters to companies in your area?
No, they were just sent to everybody on our list.
They were already on your list.
I wish we had more corporate connections, but we don't. But these were wealthy individuals on our list who wanted to help. One of them is somebody that I knew, the one that originally got involved because she heard about the picnic. She was not one of my closest friends. The other one who gave that was, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law who can do it. Another one is a friend of a friend.
Okay.
But Judy, we sent those letters to everyone on our guest list.
We did, except a few people of the new people on the committee declined to send it. Because they were just new and they didn't want to rush with their friends for asking for larger donations. But we got many $1,000 donations.
Right, and that's the other end of the spectrum. Is some of my friends sent in the $1,000 donation.
Right, they did. And I mean, I would say the advantage of this is, besides the funds, when you send out an invitation, then you have all these names on your invitation. We had an insert with an extra, at least 20 names on it or 30 names on it because of these people that donated early, so that when the invitation went out, everybody could see how many people were supporting us. And that always puts pressure on them to give some support too. So that was the advantage of it, getting as many names on that invitation as you possibly can.
Great idea. Okay. And go ahead, Beth.
And then, the fourth bullet point on there is obviously just utilize names in your community. This, the San Francisco event that's coming up is utilizing the Flicka, who's, a wonderful opera singer out there. And, of course, we are lucky to have Stephen Blyer. Max Adler, he lives in, is he living in California or New York now?
He's based in L.A., but he's an actor, so he happened to be in New York working on a play when
we had him come. And he's more than willing. He's our main spokesperson that's a celebrity. And, utilize anybody in your community that is willing to come speak or just represent, your event. I think it's gone a long way for us. Yeah. Stephen has connections to some of the famous singers and performers on Broadway, so we've been lucky with that.
And another type of local celebrity to think about is also your people in politics. And this year the Muscular Dystrophy Care Act is up for reauthorization. So there's an advocacy campaign going on to get as many people in the Congress to sign on as sponsors. So it's, you never know. I mean, you just call your local congressperson, congressional representative, or state legislature representative, and one of them might show up. That's kind of what they do. So,
yes, I'm going to do that this year. I know our local congressperson, and I'm going to, and she's quite an advocate for us, actually. And I'm going to call and see if I can get her to come for us this year, Nita Lowey.
Okay, great. So on our next slide, there's some of the kind of nitty-gritty around planning things like raffles and things that go along with events. So, Beth, would you like to go through?
Well, I mean, the big thing and what we've learned recently is the laws vary greatly from state to state and even from locality to locality. So even within your state, different counties could have different rules about what needs to be done. We were lucky in New York. We could have a raffle, and I guess if the raffle didn't gross more than $30,000 or something like that, then nothing had to be filed. I think that's changing, though, Judy, this year, so I think we need to look at that again. But I know here I live in Colorado now, and in order to have a raffle here, we got to file for a permit. It doesn't take very long, and it's not that big of a deal, but you got to have it just in case. If you would get in trouble, it would really be awful. So just check. It's super easy to check online. Just Google raffle rules for California, whatever, and it'll pop up with all the forms that you need to fill out to do the raffle. And then sometimes they ask you to pay taxes or fees or whatever for it.
Can't the FSH Society help with that raffle thing? I mean, with securing a permit and all of that?
Somewhat, but I mean, we'll check, for our own due diligence. I'll check online for the regulations, but often you need a person on the ground. I mean, for Massachusetts, someone had to go to the town clerk, and it was running late.
No.
So, one of our board members who lived in that town went to the town clerk in person and made sure it got, processed quickly enough.
if you're doing a permit, it isn't just like a blanket for the whole FSH Society. It's event by event. So you have to have a permit for every single event that goes on. We just did a very small raffle. We did, I think, 5 baskets that were all categorized. We had like a sports basket which had a bunch of sports tickets and paraphernalia and neat things that a sports lover would love. And then we had like a night out in New York that included Broadway tickets and an evening at the Lotus Club and dinner tickets. And then we had a fashion basket that had, some really fun things from Chanel and a really beautiful pair of earrings. And so we had very high valued baskets. They were each worth a minimum of $1,000, and then we sold tickets for $100 each. And I think our raffle made about $8,000, I think. So it's just an extra $8,000 that was nice to have, and it wasn't difficult at all to run.
Yeah, that wasn't difficult. Prior to that, Beth used to do a silent auction for us. That was truly fabulous, and that did make more money, but it was a tremendous amount of work, and the raffle is much easier. If your time is limited and you don't have anybody that wants to take on a whole silent auction, I would say the raffle was easy and good.
But June went to the auction up in the Northeast, and the way that it was run just sounds fabulous. And if you get help and you have a lot of help, a silent auction is almost the way to go because you can really raise a lot of money that way, right, Terry?
The silent auction raises money, but the live auction is where we make our money.
Okay.
Yeah, the silent auction is the one that is really the community pleaser, because there's something everybody can buy, so it's really for most of your attendees. They love that shopping. But the live auction is where we make our money.
Yeah.
Can I just say something about the raffle?
Sure.
Each state has, you already said that they all have their own regulations, and I really wouldn't ignore it. Like our state, you have to have a license. And if you don't have your license, you're not just making a questionable for your own organization, but also you've got the facility that you've rented or you're hosting it at that then becomes an issue too for them if they should get checked. So you really want to play by the rules. I think it would look really bad if anybody got caught.
Well, especially on the scale that you're doing, Terry, because your scale is so much larger.
Well, we don't make as much money as you do, but our raffle is bigger than what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Terry, but you do a fabulous thing. I mean, you really spend a year collecting these items.
Yeah, we do.
It's fabulous what you do, but this is a tremendous effort.
Well, I would love to put on a concert like you guys. I don't have any connections at all.
Well, I must say we really have been lucky with that.
Yeah, I think
that we had the caterer and Stephen here in New York.
Yeah.
If that changes, we would not be able to do what we do.
Well, I would imagine Stephen, if he couldn't do it, one of his friends might step in.
Exactly. He has so much
You've
support.
got connections now.
Yeah.
Well, yes and no. Yes, I guess. But it's even difficult for Stephen to get someone to perform for us in New York.
Oh, is that right?
Well, it is because most of these people don't know where they'll be a year later, if they'll be in a show or, we're dealing with theater people. So it's always an issue about who can make the commitment in advance.
But, it's evolved because our first concert was just with Stephen and Hannah Lackert, who is a violin player for the Philharmonic in New York, and her daughter has FSH. And then the next year, Stephen, he happens to be on the staff at Juilliard, so he just got some of his students, and that summer, that one of the students just happened to be named one of the, the up-and-coming performers and was performing at the Met, and so all of a sudden he was a big draw. So it kept evolving year after year, and Stephen, he makes it his own duty to make it bigger and bigger every year and get a bigger name every year. And last year, of course, we had Judy Kay. The year before, and Judy is an old performer from,
she's done a lot of Broadway and other things. But our performer this year is not so well known. I mean, she's
yeah.
terrific, but
yeah.
she doesn't have that kind of name.
Yeah.
You know, it's all I'm saying is, you know, it's not so easy for Stephen either. He has a lot of connections, but getting the commitment isn't always so easy.
Yeah.
And we've always had something at the end of the evening, whether it's our centerpieces that we put out so people can take with them, or last year, you know, Stephen had made like 10 or 15 years ago a CD with Judy Kay, who he was performing with that night, and so we had those CDs brought in, and people could take a CD home with them. So it's always nice to have something at the end of the event for people to remind them of the evening or the whatever it was.
Another thing about the event, we really kept it very simple. I mean, all these people making these very large donations, they don't really like to see a lot of fancy flowers or anything overdone. The idea was to raise as much money for research as we could and not to do too much decor or anything that screamed of a high-budget event. So I think that really makes
I think people appreciate that the money isn't being exploited. And you know, of course, we have everything donated. If we have to pay for it, we don't really like to, but
we had $4 centerpieces on our
yeah,
it was a fall event, and we had just pots of mums that we got wholesale.
Yeah, and we sat around and wrapped ribbons around them. I mean, it's just you just get everything and don't be afraid to ask. Like we said before, people will come out of the woodwork to help. They really will. And I mean, Terry, you probably know more than anything, getting everything that you have at the auction donated is a big task, but people want to do it.
One tip I heard from a friend of mine is that she found a flower arranging school. I guess a lot of, like at a community college or someplace, or, we have vocational training. They had a florist class. So they got donations of the floral arrangements the students had made.
That's amazing.
That's a good
that could be nice, too. One thing that was nice with our mums, though, too, is we set them out for people to take home.
Yeah, yep. That was our giveaway.
That was your giveaway, too, take a lot of mums home. So that was nice.
So here's your invitation, what it looks like.
Oh, okay. So I don't know if this came through okay, June, the PDFs of the invitation.
Can you see?
Yeah, it kind of came through. So we just wanted to show an example of, this is last year's invitation. We're going to change it a little bit this year. But honestly, so our printer came up with this design, and we've kept it every year now with the flowers and stuff because it was always at the Botanical Garden. So we said, come up with some flowers and some pretty colors. And it was in the fall, so come up with some fall colors. And so every year he just changes a little bit of the coloring for the new year, but we've kept this design now. This will be, I think, our 4th year using this design. Right, Judy?
Yes. I mean, we like this design because it was so colorful. And
I think it's nice. It brands the event, and it.
The only other thing we did additionally was that sponsor list, those people that donated early.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that on a separate piece of paper, piece of vellum that we inserted with the different level sponsors. Oh, and we never put a price on what they donated. We just had different names for their level. A patron, a sponsor, whatever. Of course, we put the bigger donors at the top of the list. We did, but we didn't write the amounts on because we felt, that could be a little embarrassing for some people. But that was an addition to this, that we inserted it.
So, and I'm sure a printer or somebody with a graphic design background can help with a design of something fun. You didn't want to see the very first invitation we put out. It was pretty ugly because I designed it on my computer. But
Beth let me tell you, Beth is a star at doing almost everything, and she did a lot on our computer, and it really saved us many dollars.
Yeah.
All that Beth was able to do on her computer. And we worked with a local printer who was able to make last-minute changes for us. He was accessible, and he was very willing. And but Beth was amazing, and that saved us a lot of money.
It did at
really
the start, and now it's just a matter of changing the dates and the colors, and we pretty much we use the same format every year now. But this is our RSVP card, and you can see the different levels. I'm Presario, musical director. Because it's a concert, we took names from a concert. And those are the different levels of sponsorship. We've changed it a little bit this year, but not much. And so basically this is just an example if you need a format for an RSVP card. It works pretty well.
And we use these same levels in our journal also. So if somebody gave, they were a concert master, they were a composer, they had more space in our journal. And we did not. We had this journal because we felt it was more of an inducement to give more, that they could be in a journal. And the journal they were not advertisements like a lot of journals are. They were all personal. We put a different song on each page, different composer, and people just basically wrote in honor of, in memory of, for my dear friend so-and-so. So it was kept very simple, but it had a certain elegance about it, and we think it worked very well. This is what.
Well, the journal page is up now on the screen, Judy, and unfortunately the two pages that are blacked out, you can't, I don't know why it did that, but you can kind of see on the second page, on the top it says Sylvia and Leonard Marks, so those were the sponsors, and then in the middle there we had a quote from a song. And then at the bottom, you can see their dedication. It says, in honor of the Seslowes and Egert families. And then so that was the highest level sponsorship. And then in the bottom right corner, which is blacked out, you can't see, you can see he's a little, I think he's a little concert master or something like that. So everyone knows that the picture that was on their page was their level of sponsorship. We never said, how much they gave. We only assigned, pictures. Yeah, icons, and then they knew what level of sponsorship that was. And so right next to the little guy, it would be their name, and then underneath that would be a quote from a song, and then at the bottom would be their dedication. I don't know why that blacked out, June. That's weird.
Yeah. No,
it's a great idea.
Yeah, and so, people want to see their name, and they want other people to see their name, and without saying, oh, you gave, $1,000, everyone knows if you were a concert master, you gave $1,000, So, and then you can see the thank you page at the bottom. It lists all the songbook donors, the journal donors, and then the icons that are assigned to each level.
And we also put the bios of we didn't have a separate program. We could never really get a full program from Stephen in advance.
Yeah.
But what we did was we put the bios in there of the performers, and we had letters from the society, and then we had the thank you page of all the people that donated to the raffle or services in kind for the event. So we had a special page for them.
We had a letter from Stephen Blyer, who
oh my gosh, yeah, that was
wonderful.
really nice.
Oh,
yeah.
Stephen writes beautifully. So you could even use one of those letters he wrote in the past. I mean, they're fabulous.
Oh, definitely. That's a good idea, Judy.
Those letters are just beautiful.
Yeah. But if anybody wants copies, like PDFs or document files of any of these things that you see, we're happy to give them. And I actually think we have them on our Google Docs shared file, don't we, June, on the FSH Society shared file?
Yeah.
So if you need to download any of these things, feel free to do it, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Okay, great.
And the other thing is a very good friend of mine all these years has volunteered to keep this list for us.
And Judy, she's showing pictures. It's the lady smiling with the whitish hair and the glasses. That's Sheila. And she's kept this list every year, and she's wonderful.
And when people respond, if they are going to be in the journal, they just write who in honor or what, whoever they're honoring or in memory, and Sheila keeps that on her list. So when we do this journal, we're not reinventing every page. We have on our list everyone who's responded and at what level and what they want to say in the journal. So it's really, we just send that to the printer, and it's just all automatically plugged into the journal. He gets full story.
You can see in front of Sheila, she's got a little spreadsheet in front of her, and that's what it is. It's all it is an Excel spreadsheet, and I've got a sample of it on the Google Docs as well. And that you can see how she manages all the information that comes in on the RSVPs.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to do an Excel spreadsheet, and thanks to Beth. Beth taught Sheila how to do this.
Sheila didn't know Excel before our event. Now she knows Excel inside and out.
Right. There are a lot of tools out there to make the job easier, and you make a really good point of just being a fiend about preserving the information you have. You don't want to ever have to redo anything that you've done once before.
Yeah. No reason for that.
Now, we kept our own responses. We didn't send them to the FSH Society. I mean, we sent them on, and they got everything. I mean, I don't know how any of you want to do this. We did it this way. We know the office is very busy and at times understaffed. And because it was sent to us, we immediately could put them on our list, and then I sent everything on to the office. And in a way, it was good. We had two lists. We had the list that Sheila kept on Excel here, and then Doris, when she got to it, could enter it in the office, and they could really compare the lists at the end to
and
make
then Doris
sure
would
we
send,
had everything accurately.
Yeah. And Doris would send the acknowledgement letter for tax purposes to the donor. So that was nice to have that, too,
Yes,
because the formal letter came from her.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, that's a point to make here, is that the online, I think the checks are made out to the FSH Society, and we do have an online page where people can use the online payment system to make their reservations and gifts. And so everything on the financial end is handled by the FSH Society, including the acknowledgement letters and all that. So you don't have to, the event organizers don't have to worry about that side of things.
On this page, we've got just pictures of our raffle giveaway. And so you can see we had 6 baskets that were all loaded with fun things. Very easy, and the little group of girls were Judy's grandkids, and they ran the raffle, and they would help the people. We had a Square credit card processor that the kids had on their iPhones, and they ran the credit cards through this Square processor on their iPhones. So the money went straight to the society. We didn't have to worry about collecting money. And, we had the posters made at Kinko's, and it was just really simple.
I think having the children there personalized.
Oh, they were so funny. They would run around and say, "You're going to be the big winner tonight, Grandpa," and make them buy more tickets, and it was so sweet.
But I think it helped to personalize it. It added a warm touch to it.
Yeah.
But also, it's very important to round up as many volunteers as you can.
Yes. Everyone there was a volunteer.
Right. And the grandchildren, they like it. They get some community service credit, too, probably. And I just wanted to mention that we talked about the CDs that were given away. And, I contacted the label about the CD. I said, this is perfect because it's Judy Kay and Stephen Blyer.
Right.
And I was planning to negotiate for them to get the lowest price I could on it, and they ended up donating all of the CDs. It was about 300 CDs, I think, and that was a nice surprise.
So if you don't ask, you don't get, right,
That's
Judy?
Right.
It's just so true. We had wonderful surprises all the way when we asked. Even donations for a raffle. Or an auction. People come up with wonderful things if you just talk about it. Thing is, wherever I go, I try to talk about the concerts. Oh, people say, well, what are you doing? I say, oh, I'm so busy planning the concert for next year. Constantly reminding people about this.
Yeah.
So I just, you can't talk about it enough.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, speaking of donations, I think you have another nice donated item for you have one auction, live auction item, right? And
oh, yes. We only had one. It was Super Bowl tickets, and last year, luckily, the Super Bowl was in New York, so we ended up doing quite well on the auction. But if you look, the picture that's up right now, there's a table on the left-hand side there with a group of young people. Those are just my friends. And but the girl second to the right, her husband had the connection with the Super Bowl tickets, and he donates them every single year. And that is a huge draw. Last year we got $10,000 for them. So, and there's just 2 tickets is all it is. But this is a picture of the tent. It's actually in the summer it's an outdoor kind of garden, but in the winter and the fall they put a tent over the top of it. And I think we had how many tables, Judy? Was it 30?
Oh, last year we had about 30 tables.
Yeah, 30 tables of either 10 or 12. And in the bottom right, you see a picture. There's Bob Kirsch with Judy, and Bob is the gentleman who donates the facilities every year. So that's what our dinner looked like. And the centerpieces Judy bought with her friend Sheila, and we wrapped cellophane and a ribbon around them. And I mean, we weren't fancy at all. We just stuck those on every table.
And I think you pay the caterer charges, I think, at cost for food.
Yeah, he's charging us at cost. Whatever his cost is what he charges us. And they have a full staff.
And valet parking, and they really did a great thing for us.
Yeah.
My recommendation is start small, try not to spend a lot on your event, and see what kind of response you get. And as you can get more people involved in it, you can step it up.
Yeah. And when you work with a partner like Bob who has, you don't have to rent anything. You don't have to rent tables or china,
Mm-hmm.
And I just went through a whole process because we have a San Francisco benefit concert this summer with Stephen Blyer, and we looked at the possibility of using a big, like a space that a lot of charities have, and we'd have to bring in the caterer and rent all the stuff, and then buy and the alternative, which Frederica von Stades suggested because she had performed there, was this jazz club. And it turned out like there was no comparison. They would take care of everything. So logistically, it's so much easier. They take care of the food, the staffing, the AV. It's set up to do music. And, and I think it comes out, definitely we're ahead in terms of what it would cost, but also the logistical simplicity. And we got it at a very good price because we're going on a sort of a slow night for the club. It's a weekday night. And so that's a good thing to think about if you're thinking of having a gala dinner or a concert is,
we do ours on a Monday night, basically, because theaters are dark on a Monday night, and we stand the best chance of getting a performer for that night. And that's basically why.
And Bob never had problems booking his venue
on a Monday night.
On a Monday.
Right. So the combination of all that, we always do that.
Here's some pictures of our evening. You see Judy there giving her opening speech, and then my husband did the live auction. He's in the middle there for the Super Bowl tickets. We had Max Adler give us a nice little speech, and he spoke about why he's involved because his mother and his grandmother had FSHD. And then down below you see Stephen and Judy performing. They were just so fun. And they made it really personal. They talked to the audience and cracked jokes with each other, and it was really fun.
And here's some more.
Some more pictures. You see Dan Perez with his wife, and then one of our good friends, that's Mark Younger, with Dan and Susan Perez. And there's Judy and I in the top right corner. we're the team. Max Adler with June, you see there, and his fiance. And then in the far right, or bottom right corner, I don't know if you guys know our lead scientists who I just adore. That's Mr. and Mrs. Jones. They're the scientists that seem to be making the most headway, and they're always willing to come to events to speak or to support or do anything. If you want a scientific aspect, Peter Jones there and his wife, they're just always willing to speak about their progress on their research. So, if you want to have a really good speaker, invite him.
Well, there are scientists on the West Coast. They're on the East Coast.
Exactly, yeah.
But there are other people on the West Coast, I'm sure, that you could get.
That would come speak, sure.
Terry had the whole Seattle research labs come. There were dozens of scientists there, and I think that's really terrific because it creates that further connection. These are, the scientists will go around talking about how grateful they are for the support and what they're doing with it, and so
that's terrific.
That is so important. And I think that's it, right, June?
Yeah, just a few more photos, and that's it. I have your contact information up. Are there any questions on?
Very impressive. Thank you for sharing that.
Very informative. Great.
Yeah, well, if we can be of any further help, don't hesitate to call me. This is Judy, and I know Beth feels the same way.
Yeah.
We're happy to discuss it. And when we started, we had no experience with this. So it's just what we've learned, as we said, as we've gone along.